Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for joining us today on this Friday afternoon. And welcome to the information session for the Tour France Summer Abroad program. Before we start, we wish to acknowledge this land on which the University of Toronto operates. For thousands of years, it has been the traditional land of the Huron-Wendat, the Seneca, and the Mississaugas of the Credit. And today, this meeting place is home to many Indigenous people from across Turtle Island, and we're grateful to have the opportunity to work on this land. So we'll start with some brief introductions. My name is Genevieve Steidman, and I'm one of the program coordinators in the Summer Abroad office. And I'm the coordinator for the Tour France program. We also have with us today on the back end our frontline advisor, who some of you may have met already. His name is Joe, and he will be handling some of the Q&A on the back end, which I'll get into in just a minute. We also have two professors who will be teaching in the program in the summer, Professor Rosa Hong and Professor Owusu-Bempah. And we're very happy to have a former student participant to give you the student perspective. Juliana is joining us for the session as well, and she'll be speaking at the end about the student experience, and I'm sure we'll be happy to handle any questions you have for the student perspective. So I will just start with a brief with the agenda. So we will be starting with a Summer Abroad overview, and then we'll get right into the course information and hear from our instructors. Then we'll talk about some of the on-site specifics like accommodations. Following that, we'll talk about the costs for the program, how to apply, admission criteria and assessment. And then, as I mentioned, finally, we'll hear the student experience. So I'll start with a brief introduction of what is Summer Abroad. So Summer Abroad gives you the opportunity to take a regular U of T credit, so not a transfer credit, at one of our locations abroad. And you get to earn a full year credit, that's a Y credit, in only about 4 weeks during the summer. And because these are regular U of T credits and not transfer credits, they can count towards program requirements as well as breadth requirements in the same way that an on-campus course would. And the grade shows on your ACORN record and counts towards your CGPA, just like a regular on-campus course. In addition to the academics, we organize your accommodation, orientations, program activities, and field trips, which are a big part of Summer Abroad as well. And another thing that sets us apart from most exchanges is that we have designated U of T staff who are there with you on the ground. And they're there to help you with all the non-academic things that come up, help you to get used to your new living environment, all the daily things like learning how to use the transit system, finding out where the grocery stores are. So we have on-site staff available to help you navigate your new environment. So our offices are located at Woodsworth College, which you can see behind me here. And we are on the St. George campus, but I want to emphasize that our programs are open to all U of T students. So no matter which campus you're studying at, no matter which faculty you're in, you're welcome to apply for Summer Abroad. So why do a Summer Abroad? So there are a lot of academic, personal, and professional benefits to be had from doing a Summer Abroad. And we get this information from when we survey students after the program. And these are some of the things that they say they really benefit from doing a Summer Abroad. So first of all, being able to get that full Y credit done in only 4 weeks in the summer. Experiencing what you're learning in the classroom, and really working closely with professors and colleagues. This is one thing that students highlight often, is that for some, it's the first time that they've taken a seminar course and really participated and presented and worked closely with the professors. So it's a great opportunity to do so, where sometimes at U of T, you're in very large classes. Ours are limited to 25 students per course. So it is also a very intensive academic experience. So again, because you're doing that full credit in only 4 weeks, it is very, very condensed. But the good thing is that both you and the other students in the class, you're only doing that one course. So you're very focused on the experience and you're ready to have that intensive academic learning experience. It's great for personal development. One thing we hear time and again from our former students is that they make great friends during the program. A lot of students don't know anyone at the beginning of the program. So it's a great opportunity to meet new people who might be studying at different campuses, who are doing completely different majors than what you're doing. and really finding new connections to increase your network. Gaining independence and confidence. If it is the first time that you've lived away from home or the first time that you've traveled, it's an opportunity for you to challenge yourself, but also have the support built around you that Summer Abroad offers, both through our on-site staff and through other online resources that you'll have when you're there. So you have that support while you're also learning to adapt and gaining that independence. And finally, the professional benefits, which we hear all the time. Some students will tell us that they got a great reference letter from their prof, or they decided to pursue graduate school there. They get really inspired by the experience academically, and it can turn into professional experiences as well. So for our program that we're talking about today, we're talking about, of course, the program in Tours, France. Just a brief overview, and I will be getting into all these details as we get a little bit further into the session. So the dates, it's a 4-week program. It runs from Thursday, June 26th. That's the day that you check into your residence. And then it ends on Saturday, July 26th. There are 3 courses available: French culture, criminology, both of which are taught in English by our U of T profs, and then also French language courses at all levels, which you take with the Institut de Tourain's staff. They are our host institution, and I'll chat a little bit about them as we go along. So a couple of words about Tours itself. I'm sure you've all done a little bit of research online and you've decided this is a place you really want to be in the summer. It is the largest city in the Touraine region of central France, with a population of about 150,000. So it's a pretty small sized city compared to a place like Toronto or a place like Paris. It's a very historic and very cultural town. It has served twice as the capital of France. There are many museums and galleries, beautiful old streets, just a wonderful place to immerse yourself in historic French culture. It's in the Touraine region in the Loire Valley, which is famous for its chateaus, as you'll see on one of the photos there. That's just one of the chateaus that you may visit when you're in the program. And the Loire Valley is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. So sometimes students wonder why we chose Tours instead of Paris for this particular program. One great thing is that it's more affordable than Paris. It's a smaller town, easier to navigate, and it's very French culturally. So while Paris can be more cosmopolitan, more multicultural, France really does give you a very immersive French experience. And our host, the Institut de Touraine, it was founded in 1912. They welcome students from all over the world into their language programs. That's the Institute building down there. These are some of the classrooms, and we have been working in partnership with the Institute for over 20 years. We have a wonderful relationship with them. They provide excellent support for our students, and we couldn't be happier to be working with them. They offer the French language courses, so those courses are taught by Institute staff. And they also arrange for your accommodations. So accommodations are booked by the Institute for our students in nearby residences in Tours. And all the courses, whether you're doing the French language course or the culture or criminology course, they all take place at the Institute. And a few activities to highlight for when you arrive. You get, of course, a residence tour, orientations, walking tour of the city. They do a welcome reception dinner. They also do a day trip to the town of Amboise and related sites where you can view some of those famous chateaus. And it's a great way to meet students in the other classes as well. And of course, you have that whole weekend of the first program to meet other U of T students, other U of T staff, as well as the Institute staff. So one great thing about this program, it starts on the Thursday. You don't have classes until the Monday, so you do have quite a few days to get acclimatized and get settled. And in terms of eligibility, so as I mentioned, it is open to all U of T students as long as you're in good academic standing. So if you are currently on probation, you wouldn't be eligible to apply this year. You'd have to wait until your academic standing changes back to good standing. And students need to have a minimum CGPA of at least 1.75. But if you're a first-year student, you can still apply as well, even if you don't have any grades yet showing on Acorn, as long as you've successfully completed your first semester. We also welcome students from other North American universities. So we often have a couple of visiting students in our program. So if you have a friend or family member who may be at another university and may be interested in joining you in this program, feel free to have them reach out. We're open to having visiting students join the program, and they would earn a U of T credit as well. So now that we've done a little bit of an introduction to the program itself, we will be getting into much more detail soon, but let's hand it over first to our instructors to hear a little bit about the courses that they'll be teaching in the program. So we're going to start with Professor Owusu-Bempah. He taught in our Italy program last year, so he has lots of experience with summer abroad. And he will be teaching Crim 389, which is topics in criminology and socio-legal studies, crime, migration, and social control. So Kwasi, I'll hand it over to you.
Good afternoon. Everyone can hear me okay?
Yeah.
Wonderful. So an absolute pleasure to be here. I'm so excited about teaching this course. As noted, I was in Siena last summer and had a great time. And, I'm going to reiterate, I think, Genevieve, some of what you've just said in terms of why just, enrolling in the program and doing the course is so meaningful. Before getting into my subject matter, I just, really want to double down on the close connection that can be built with your professor, the close connections with the other students, and the opportunity to learn in another country. The opportunity for me to teach in another country is just phenomenal. And in the process of doing so, last year managed to develop some very strong relationships with the students in a way that is simply not possible during regular courses. And we were having a conversation earlier and just kind of joking about the student letters of reference. I just finished writing a series of letters of reference for one of the students in my course. So it really, really is an academic experience that is unique to anything else you will find unless you travel as part of your studies. So I'm teaching a criminology course, crime, migration, and social control. I'm very excited to teach this in France and in Tours. Before I talk a little bit about the class, I'll talk about myself. So I am a professor in the Department of Sociology, but trained as a criminologist, and I teach in the criminology program. I have 3 degrees in criminology, 2 of those from the University of Toronto. And much of my work focuses on the intersections of race, crime, and the criminal justice system. I'm very interested in inequality and how various forms of inequality influence people's experiences with the justice system, and how the justice system reproduces various forms of inequality. And so I do a lot of academic work, and for folks that are in Soc and Crim, you may have read some of my work. I do a lot of public work as well, so I work with the government and with journalists trying to get the summer study findings out to the public. And I bring the multitude of work that I undertake into the classroom, so that we're not just talking theoretical or empirical studies. We're really talking about how the subject matter affects people on the ground, and how the subject matter is playing out in real time. And we're going to get to see this in the course that I will be teaching this summer. Crime, migration, and social control. All that you would have had to have done is pay attention to any one of a number of elections that have taken place this year, most certainly south of the border, to see the strong connection between migration, social control, concerns around crime, and politics. Donald Trump, as just one example, really paid a lot of attention to migration. And we've seen this in Europe in a very big way, a wave of political change sweeping across the continent, in part because of concern around the movement of people, how to control those people. And oftentimes it's the criminal justice system, and especially law enforcement and corrections, that end up becoming implicated in those means of control. And so I'm going to read a little bit from the syllabus, and so you'll have to excuse me. But the goal of this course will really be to examine and understand the intricate dynamics of crime, migration, and social control on a global scale. University of Toronto, we have students who are themselves or their families from a multitude of different parts of the world. And so there are always opportunities to, come to personal examples in discussing the subject matter. Key topics that we'll cover, we will situate this historically. We can't understand what's taking place now without looking to the past, and the region in France that we will be has a rich history with respect to the migration of people, of course, not only throughout Europe, but as a point from which people left Europe and made their way to the Americas as well. We'll talk about current global migration trends and the security implications of those, and then we'll really get into the crime and justice related elements of the subject matter. So topics such as organized crime and migration, policing migration and border control, looking at some of the legal frameworks and the international agreements that help frame migration and border control and those social control mechanisms. And then, of course, there are a multitude of organizations who are active on the ground, working with people as they move throughout countries and in between countries. And so we'll look at the role of non-governmental organizations, civil society, and other organizations in migration management. So a very broad kind of course in terms of the multitude of things that we can discuss. Again, it is a criminology course, so we'll be coming at this subject matter from the point of, as I've mentioned, social control. So how we and how the state controls those populations, especially that it deems to be problematic. And again, doing so using very real world examples. And so, it's again exciting that as we are in France, that we will be able to have some field trips. And so we will have a number of field trips. We'll have 4, we'll have 1 a week. 2 of those will be local to Tours, where we will, delve a little bit into kind of the cultural and the current contemporary reality of Tours and do some local visits. We will do a day trip to Paris to assess, examine, and understand the French immigration landscape. I've got one film in particular that I'll show that is about the riots and protests that have come from migrant groups as they've tried to settle in Paris and the troubles that they've experienced during settlement. We'll go to the National Museum of Immigration History, as well as visiting a law enforcement policing museum as well. So we'll look at the migration side and the policing side. We will have a more local day trip to Net to explore French involvement in the transatlantic slave trade and its modern implications, including another local history museum and memorial. And then finally, we will have a day trip within Tours itself to look at municipal policing. So my goal here again is really to expose students to the realities of migration, to the apparatus of social control, and to explore these, for example, by talking to the people who are engaged in this work, either as frontline service providers for people experiencing migration and seeking asylum, perhaps, as well as those engaged in law enforcement. And, it's certainly one of the highlights of the trip last year for me was visiting the local police station and going and looking at their forensics units and having students, get in the back of a police car and have their fingerprints taken and their mug shots and developing a profile. So that's, a little bit about me, a little bit about the course. I absolutely love to teach. I love engaging with students, and I look forward to the opportunity to do so this summer in a foreign country.
Thank you so much, Akwasi, for joining us today.
Absolutely my pleasure. Please don't hesitate to reach out, and look forward to, I can't see you now, but I look forward to seeing you, hopefully all in France this summer.
So moving on now, I'll introduce our other professor, Professor Rosa Hong, and she will be teaching the French culture course, which is the culture of Touraine, fables, myths, and legends of the Loire.
Yes, hello. So welcome. Thank you for coming to this session. Like Wakashi said, I love teaching, and this course has a different personal dimension to me, because I did my master's in Tours, and I learned to perfect my French at the L'Institut de Touraine. So this is kind of my second home. This is where I met my friends who are still very close to me, even after 30 years of time and space between us. So just a little bit about this course. Touraine being one of the oldest regions in France, it's just infinite source of stories and legends and tales that spread universally out in the world through the colonial time, when French people traveled to many places. So it's going to be a daunting task to touch upon and study all the elements of cultural components of the region. So what we're going to focus on is going to be the stories, the very typical stories through giants and saints and famous fairy tales that took place and they were originated in France. So for instance, Saint Martin, there's a whole worship and cult of Saint Martin in the world. Probably you heard of those Saint Martin's cult. In fact, he was a bishop in Tours. And then Joan of Arc was from Tours. So that once again, it's the emblematic figure of a French culture. So we will be starting from those founding saints. And then now we'll look at some very famous literary giants such as Honoré de Balzac, François Rabelais, Pierre Ronsard, okay, those people. Not only are we going to be reading and talking about those writers, but we'll be visiting their site. So we get to see where they wrote their novels and poetries. And then we're going to move on to these fabulous castles, like Genevieve mentioned. Loire Valley is known for its castle. It used to be called the Garden of Kings. So you can imagine how beautiful those sites are. It's UNESCO heritage sites as well. So we're going to go visit the birthplace of Sleeping Beauty, if you remember those fairy tales, and then see how they travel in the world, including your culture and your literally fields. Then we're going to look at how these fairy tales travel even to Canada. So how it changed over the course of time and migration process. And we'll look at the interdisciplinary nature and intertextuality and the question of otherness through these characters and modernize them. So we'll shed a new light on these historical and cultural figures and see how they relate to our modern days life. Yeah, so we'll look at all these literary genre from hagiographical culture to the fairy tales and the artistic representations. And another thing that I'm very excited about this is my professor, who's world-renowned scholars in comparative literature, still living in Tours. So last year he visited a class and talked about a little bit of, gave us a little lecture. So it was almost like your prof, the grand prof came to do a visit, and I was like a student like you listening to his lecture. It was a really interesting guest lecturer. I'm also inviting another person who was born and raised and polyglot. He speaks 7 languages, and he'll be coming and talking about the real stories of people who were born and raised in the region. We'll be doing a number of field trips, like in criminology course, 1 per week. We're going to start with small with the sites in Tours, and then we're going to travel to castles, including Chenonceau, which is beautiful, and one of the pictures were taken from Chenonceau, and it's one of the cutest, one of the most visited castle. So you'll be doing a lot of the group work and the collaborative works, because I do apply my action-oriented communicative learning approach in my literature course as well. So you'll have opportunity to talk about how these themes relate to your culture, your background, and your language as well. So I'm very excited. I lived there for many years, and when I came back last year, it was so exciting because it's almost like the former teacher bring her students back to the second home. It was a great experience, and I hope I can share the same experience with you this summer.
Thank you so much. So we'll just carry on and talk about some more details of the program. So we'll start with the FSL French language courses, which are the other academic option that you have in the France program. So these French language courses, as I mentioned previously, are taught by instructors from the Institut de Touraine. All levels are offered. So depending on what how you place in the placement exam, you can do any level from FSL 100H, which is beginner level, all the way up to 442 and 443. And all students earn a U of T FSL credit, not a transfer credit. So even though in this case you are in class with our host institution, you would be earning still a U of T credit for your work. So one unique thing about the FSL French language courses is that you're integrated with students from around the world. So because they offer all different levels, they have small classes, and it might be a case where you don't even have another U of T student in your class. Sometimes you will, but you definitely get to meet people from other locations who are also there to study French. Your classes are Monday through Fridays, from 9 a.m. to 12 noon. Just to add, I don't think we mentioned for the English language courses, the criminology and the French culture course, those classes are Monday through Thursdays from 9 to 12. But the French language are Monday through Friday. And you also have 5 hours per week of workshops in the afternoons. So these can be practical French. They can also be things in French culture or French for specific purposes, but more cultural sort of enrichment workshops in the afternoon. And those are 2.5 hours, Tuesdays and Thursday afternoons. Because you are getting French language credit from the French department, this year, the U of T French department will be actually sending a TA who will be doing most of the grading for you. So even though you are in class with the Institute instructors and other students, your work assignments will be graded on site by a U of T TA. So I just wanted to highlight on the website where you can find the detailed information about the courses. So when you're in the French program site, if you go to the left tab where it says courses, you can then open up these options, and they give you a lot of detail about the placement as well as the course syllabus, which will show you the equivalencies. So we will be presenting it today. We'll be talking about the equivalency chart, but you can also always access it on our website. So this is the chart. This may be familiar to some of you. These are the Institut de Touraine levels, which are offered and which you would be taken, and it shows how it works with the U of T equivalencies. So you would receive on your academic record one of these U of T credits based on which institute language level you are placed at. If you are at UTM or UTSC, we do ask you to check with your departments there to make sure that the equivalencies are the same, but this is the most recent information that we have about those equivalencies. But still, whether you're at UTM or UTSC, it would be the St. George course code that shows on your academic record. So if you are an absolute beginner, if you've had zero exposure to French, you can submit a declaration for beginners, which exempts you from having to write the Institute placement test. So in that case, you would be automatically placed in the FSL 100 and 102 course, and you'd be at the Institute's beginner level. And you can find that form on our website as you're going through the application. If it does apply to you, then you would also upload that into your summer abroad application. But if you have any previous French exposure, so not just courses taken, but if you've been exposed to French through your living environment, or if you did a little bit of French, for instance, if you grew up in Canada, you would definitely have some previous French exposure. So in that case, you would have to complete the Institut de Touraine placement assessment online. So this happens in early February. One thing to note is that it's not the same as the U of T placement test. So once we've collected all of the applications, once the deadline has passed, we will send everyone the link to the Institut de Touraine's online placement exam. So all students will do that test. It usually takes about 20 minutes to half an hour. And then a couple of weeks later, we get the results from the Institute, and then I will communicate that to each student. So we will let you know by email which FSL level you were placed at, or which institute level you were placed at, and which corresponding U of T FSL course that is. So at that point, You can either consult with the French department. If you are a French major, we would advise you to check with the French department and just make sure that that FSL credit works for your requirements. Now, if you are placed in FSL 195 or 295, then if you do want to take further courses at U of T, you also have to write U of T's placement exam after the program. So once the program ends, you would contact the French department, write their placement exam, and then they would be able to decide exactly which FSL courses you should be continuing in. Also, they may put notations on the back end through Degree Explorer showing how that course will count towards your particular degree. So there is quite a lot of involvement with the French department for the FSL courses, particularly if you're doing a French minor or a French major. You want to make sure that you're getting the right credit and that the French department knows which credit you're doing. So highly recommend you speak to them after you get your results from the institute placement test. Some students are just doing it as a breadth requirement. They're just going to take one French language course. They might just want to try a beginner course. And they can just keep the credit. They don't necessarily have to write the placement exam when they come back. It's only if you're going to take more FSL courses or if you're doing a minor or a major in FSL. Otherwise, the same course code would just show on your ACORN as is. One thing to note, so if you are placed in the wrong level and you're not able to take that credit and you've spoken with the French department and it's just not going to work for you, you have a couple of options. You can either withdraw your application completely, in which case you would receive a partial refund of the application fee. So you would receive a $100 refund of the application fee if you choose to withdraw based on your placement results. The other couple of options that you have would be to take the criminology course or the French culture course instead. So if you still want to go to Tours, but the French language credit doesn't work for you, you have that option to do those either as a breadth requirement or as an extra credit. So moving on from some of the academic things to more of the logistics. So let's talk about entry requirements. So students are responsible for arranging their own visa if necessary, but we do provide supporting documents to you. So Canadian citizens currently require a passport valid for 3 months beyond their return date. So do check your passports now and just make sure that it's not going to expire, because if it is, you'll want to get started on that as soon as possible. If you are an international student, you would check with the French consulate. They have a consulate here in Toronto, and we encourage you to apply early and to apply here while you're still in Toronto. We can supply a supporting letter for you and help you along the way if you need any other documentation for your visa. And in terms of insurance, we do recommend that you check the terms and conditions of your travel health and cancellation insurance. There may be other entry requirements starting in 2025. So some of you may have heard of the ETIAS, the European Travel Information and Authorization System. This is like an ETA, it's like an electronic travel authority, and the EU has said that they're going to be launching it in 2025. So far, it hasn't been launched yet. So we would advise you to just keep checking the ETIAS website, which is etias.com, to see if they will be implementing it. They say that they will be, but we're not sure exactly when it's going to come into effect. It is a simple application procedure. There's already information on their website about how you would apply. You apply online with basic passport information. You usually get the results in just a few minutes. It's usually pretty automatic, and there's a cost of €7 involved in that. So keep an eye out for the ETIAS. It may be happening this summer. Now, in terms of flights, so we don't organize a group flight. Students make their own travel arrangements to Paris. However, we do provide a suggested flight or a recommended flight. So once you're admitted, we'll send everyone along with their admission materials information on what that flight is, the flight numbers, the dates, and then you're welcome to book yourself onto that flight. Usually about 20 or 30 students will book themselves onto the same flight. So it's a nice way, if you're able to sort of get to know people even before you get to Tours. But you can also equally make your own arrangements there. That's fine. We do arrange a bus, and our on-site staff will be at the airport to meet the recommended flight when it comes in. But even if you're not on that flight, if you can be at the airport by the time that flight gets there, so if your flight is arriving earlier than the group flight, then you can meet the on-site coordinator and you can join that group bus from Paris to Tours. And again, we'll give more information to this in the post-acceptance steps. We also, every year we have one of the students, once we've done the admissions, we have one of the students create a social media group, which is not monitored by Summer Abroad. And that way students can connect independently if they want to either travel together or just get to know each other a little bit before the program. So your residence is in Tours. So the Institut de Touraine arranges the residences for us. All of the residences are single studio apartments. So it's a fairly small apartment, but it is a private space. So it's a single room with a small kitchenette and also a private washroom. They're usually a walk to the institute where the classes are held. It can be between a 20-minute or 30-minute walk. There is also bus service if you were interested in that. There's no meal plan, but you do have the option of preparing your own meals to save on your costs. So that's the good thing about having your own kitchenette. One thing to highlight is, like many buildings in Europe, there's no air conditioning. This can be really shocking for people who are used to buildings in Toronto. So that's something that you're going to want to think about ahead of time and prepare yourself for, and just think if that's something that you can handle for 4 weeks in the summer. There is laundry available at the apartments, which is also good, so you don't need to pack for a full 4 weeks. The exact residence building is usually confirmed closer to the start of the program, because it depends on availability of local students and how many spaces are available in the various buildings. But you will have an on-site coordinator living in the building with you as well. So sometimes our group is split between 2 buildings, which are fairly close to each other. You would have on-site staff at each of the buildings. So I have a couple of pictures of where our students stayed last summer. They were at 2 residences. Some were at Leonardo da Vinci residence. The others were at Rabelais residence. So these are some of the pictures. Feel free to look them up online as well. There's much more pictures online, but this is just to give you an idea. They are nice, modern buildings. Our students generally say they feel safe. It's fairly clean. They've had fairly good experiences in the residences. The only thing is the lack of air conditioning that some aren't used to. And we will provide more information in the post-acceptance steps about residents as well. So in addition to the field trips, which are organized for students in the culture and the criminology courses, there are also optional institute activities that you can sign up for once you're there. So they have tours of historic buildings, cultural activities, sports activities, a lot going on. So definitely take advantage of those while you're there. There are also excursions that you can pay for once you get there, to the chateaux of the Loire Valley, Mont Saint-Michel, and Paris, as well as others. So definitely look for those excursions, which are organized by the Institut de Touraine. And they will give you a schedule of events when the program starts and when they're doing the on-site orientation. So in terms of the finances, it's a great idea to start budgeting now for the summer. The final payments will be due on April 9th. And we also encourage you to apply for the financial awards, which are available, particularly through the Summer Abroad office. There's also a video on our website about financing your summer abroad, a webinar like this one just about financing. So I would recommend you watch that as well. So you can find all this information on the financial aid tab of our website. And it also talks about some external awards that our programs are eligible for. So there's the CIE International Experience Award. And if you are currently on OSAP, you are also eligible to apply for the summer extension for your OSAP. So one thing to note about those 2 sources of funding is that they don't release the funds until the start of the program. So OSAP doesn't release them until the program has actually started, and the IE awards from CIE often come in the middle of the program. So it's good for on-site expenses or to pay yourself back, but the fees, as I mentioned, will be due ahead of time by April 9th. We also ask you to check with your own registrar's office, because several of the colleges also have bursaries available specifically for international experiences. So you can make a quick appointment with your own financial aid officer at your own college registrar's office and find out if they have any additional bursaries that you can apply for. So you'll find the specific cost information once you're in the program area. This costs tab will open up these 2 menus. I'll just quickly look at the domestic one to give you an idea of how it's organized. So we give you a full breakdown of all of the fees. And we break it down by fees that are paid to U of T and then additional costs which are variable and which you would cover on your own. So there's the application fee paid to summer abroad, course fee, the incidental fees, which are paid on Acorn once we add the course for you, as well as field trip fees and accommodation, which are paid to summer abroad. And then other costs such as airfare and meals are, again, those are variable, and those would depend on your own, which flight you're able to book. And also with meals, it really depends on your habits, how much of the meals you want to prepare yourself, or whether you like to go to restaurants a lot. So of course, that's variable. That's something that you need to keep in mind when you're budgeting. So this is the domestic fees. The international fees are the same, except for the course fees. So there is an international course fee premium. So we do have quite a lot of financial aid, which is offered through Summer Abroad. And this is easy to apply for. You apply for it at the same time that you are applying to the program. So it's built into the Summer Abroad application. You'll get to a question where it asks if you want to apply for Summer Abroad, and then a module of financial aid questions will appear. So it's very easy to apply, and we highly encourage you to apply for the financial aid, which is offered through Summer Abroad. And unlike some of those external sources, the Summer Abroad financial aid is applied directly to your fees invoice. So right away, it gets deducted from what you owe for your fees to Summer Abroad. The criteria for these, you have to be a domestic student, so Canadian citizen, PR, or protected person, a current university undergraduate student, and you have to have completed already at least 4 full credits. So if you are in first year, you wouldn't be eligible for any of the Summer Abroad funding for this year, but it's something that you can definitely plan on for further years of your studies. And a CGPA would be at least 2.25 for these awards, and it can be higher depending on how competitive it is and how many awards are available. There are also some merit-based awards, which you can apply for also through Summer Abroad. These ones you apply for after you have already submitted your application. So it's a little bit different from the financial aid awards, which are part of the same application. But once you have applied, and you can apply for both, you can go back in, search the merit-based awards, and find out if there are any awards that you would be eligible for and that you would like to apply for. And these are all done online through our website as well. So applications are now open. The deadline is February 3rd. There is a $210 application fee. You will receive a partial refund if you are not selected or if you don't place into the correct FSL level. So you'll be refunded $100 if you are not selected. If you are applying to multiple programs, you would submit a separate application fee for each program. And by program, I mean country. So if you're also applying to Germany or you're also applying to England, Summer Abroad, those would be separate applications, each with their own application fee. And here's, for those of you who haven't started an application yet, here's what it looks like. And I just wanted to highlight that you want to make sure that all of these check marks are done to make sure that you've completed all the steps in your application. This is also where you pay the application fee and where you finally submit your completed application. And in terms of assessment, it's not first come, first serve. So don't worry about hurrying to get it done. There's no advantage to getting it in particularly early, as long as you get it in by the February 3rd deadline. So we look at academic suitability, which would be your CGPA, and making sure that you meet any prerequisites if there are any. But then we also pay a lot of attention to your personal statement. So we really want to see why you're interested in taking this program, why it's a good fit for you, how it fits into your academic and personal goals. We really pay a lot of attention to the personal statements. So be sure to work on those and make them as great an impression as you can with them. And new this year, we're also doing recorded interview questions. So another mandatory part of your application is the online recorded interview. So in these questions, it takes about 20 minutes to complete. You're asked to speak about general things like general adaptability and other experiences that you may have had, difficult situations that you've faced, how you overcame them, things like that. So it's nothing that you need to study for. It's not specifically about France. It's more about general adaptability and experience. So for the recorded interview part, once you've paid your application fee, you'll receive an email with a link to a personalized individual link, which will take you to our recorded interview system. You'll go there, you get to do a couple of practice sessions, make sure that your camera and your audio is working and everything. And then you can go ahead and complete those interview questions. There are some great how-to videos on our website, which were put together by our work study students. So I recommend you check out those how-to videos on our website, and you'll find them in the Apply tab. Decisions will be sent in late February and early March by email. Of course, if you're applying to the FSL course, you'll hear from me first. In early February, you'll have a week to do your online placement exam of the Institute. And then we need to wait for the results from the Institute, so that can take a little bit of time. So by early March, we should be able to know the levels that you're placed at and do the admissions for the program. So if you are accepted, you have 1 week to confirm your participation by paying a non-refundable $1,000 deposit. If you are offered a space and you decline the offer, you would not get your application fee refunded. There is one exception. If you are applying for the Summer Abroad Awards, and what we do is we notify you at the same time, 2 different messages, but usually on the same day, whether you've been admitted to the program and then whether you've received the financial aid that you applied for. If you did not receive the financial aid from Summer Abroad, and you need to withdraw for that reason, you can let us know, and we would be able to refund part of your application fee. We would be able to refund $100 of the application fee if you need to withdraw for that reason. But again, you would have 7 days to make that decision. So at that time, you'll get, there are what we call the post-admission steps through the Summer Abroad portal that you need to complete. You need to provide us with a little bit more information about yourself, and details like emergency contacts, passport number, that kind of thing. So we ask for more information, and we also provide you a lot more information at that point. And then the last thing is the online pre-departure orientation, which will take place in May. And we also produce an online student guide to help prepare you and give you more specific information about what to expect ahead of time. So you'll have access to that about a month before you actually start the program. And before we wrap up our presentation, just a couple words about accessibility abroad. So if you do have accommodations that you receive on campus, we want to make sure that you register with your campus accessibility services office so that an accommodation plan can be put in place for summer abroad as well. So for that reason, after you're admitted, we require your letter of accommodation within 7 days of being admitted. And it's good to know that the range of accommodations will differ from country to country. So we can't guarantee necessarily that the sites available would be able to offer you the exact same accommodations that you have at U of T, but we are usually able to offer quite a few accommodations depending on the location. So we strongly encourage you to contact Summer Abroad as soon as possible to discuss which sites might be best for you, depending on what your own accommodation needs are. For that reason, we actually have a designated accessibility coordinator. She does equity, diversity, inclusion, and accessibility. And she would be the one that you would reach out to if you do have any accommodations that are required or any questions about accessibility. So her contact information is here, and it's also on our website as well. And a few other things about accessibility and equity, diversity, and inclusion. So our coordinator has put together amazing resources on our website for various different student communities, and it allows you to explore resources as you consider summer abroad opportunities and the ones that might best suit your needs. So here on our website, there is a tab for EDI and accessibility. It's a great place to look at some of the resources and challenges that may apply to different student communities. We've also put together site-specific resources. So the different countries, the different programs we offer, of course, have different levels of inclusivity. Facilities are very different depending on which of our programs you're doing. So you're going to want to check if you do have any accessibility needs, you will want to check the website again and just see that the program does meet your specific needs. And finally, we have a Summer Abroad Award in diversity, inclusion, and excellence. There are some great stories here on our website of previous winners of the award, and how the program really enhanced their academic journey. So I recommend to check out that part of our website as well for additional funding. So now we have with us Juliana, who did the France program in 2023. She's going to tell us a little bit about her experience. So Juliana, over to you.
Okay, hello everyone. My name is Juliana. I'm in my 4th year at the St. George campus, and I'm majoring in political science with minors in philosophy and French language. And in July 2023, I participated in the French language program as part of this course. And I was placed in FSL 295, which means I took the placement test when I got back to Toronto. And I chose this program because I wanted an immersive experience to improve my French skills, and this certainly helped me do that. I saw the most significant benefits in my speaking skills and my confidence. I began to have interactions with waiters or shop workers entirely in French, which I would never have done before because I felt just too nervous in my French speaking skills. But the location was also a huge benefit. Since Tours is not a very big city, you can walk to pretty much anywhere you want or need to go. The school, of course, but also restaurants, grocery stores, shops, and much more. And I was in the Leonardo da Vinci residence building, which, for the record, as long as you have a fan, you can buy one there or bring a small one before. You'll be fine. I found the weather to be pretty mild, so you'll be fine without air conditioning, I promise. Anyways, in my residence, we're also right by the train station, which further shows why Tours is so great. You can take trains, including high-speed trains, to so many different locations, as Tours is in a really convenient location in the Loire Valley. Through both the Institute's organized trips that you sign up for and my own personal travel, I got to explore the other cities in the area and other places further in France as well. Two of my most notable trips were Mont Saint-Michel, which I went with the Institute, and then Paris, which I went with friends. And we were there for Bastille Day, and we got to see fireworks at the Eiffel Tower. It was amazing. A typical day for me as an FSL student was class in the morning, and then going out to lunch with friends and spending the afternoons exploring Tours or nearby cities, engaging in art, culture, all sorts of activities like that. Of course, Tuesday and Thursday, we did have class after lunch as well. In my schedule for my class, the Tuesday class usually focused on writing, and then Thursday was speaking. However, it might depend on your class or your professor. But that actual part of class does not take up the whole afternoon. You'll also have the opportunity to either study for the DELF, which is this French level exam, or do theater class. And if you don't want to take the exam, I really recommend doing the theater class because we had a lot of fun. We were basically playing outside while practicing our French speaking skills. So it was quite special. And then evenings we spent at the Guinguette, which is this outdoor place by the water where people dance and talk and drink, and it's a great opportunity to practice your French. And they also had a Ferris wheel while I was there, so hopefully they still will. What was so special about the language course, because you're separated by level and not school, you get to meet so many new people and make friends outside your typical circle. Due to the experience, I made friends from USA, Spain, Japan, Belgium, and Russia, and so many more different places, which I would never had the opportunity to meet these people before. I also had a great professor who really encouraged my love of French and taught me lots about French culture too. And so overall, I had the most wonderful time in France with memories I will cherish forever. And because of this experience, I actually spent my last summer 2024, abroad as well.
That's amazing. Thank you so much. I just love hearing the perspective from our students and just hearing what a great experience you had there. So just before we go today, I just wanted to highlight our Instagram page. You'll want to follow us at U of T Abroad. We have incredible stories put together by our students, by our social media correspondents. It's just amazing, not just to see the France photos and experiences, but all of them. So do check us out on Instagram. We also have student stories posted on our website, which definitely have a look at. You'll hear how the experiences really transformed the lives of a lot of our students who've done our programs. And finally, I just want to remind everyone that really feel free to reach out if you have any questions or concerns. You can book an appointment with me to have a virtual appointment. You can also reach me directly by email at france.abroad@utoronto.ca. All of our staff here are more than happy to chat with you about any concerns you have, even about the application or anything that you're coming across. So please do feel free to reach out. And thank you everyone for joining us. And I just want to wish you all the best of luck with your applications. So have a great day, everyone, and take care.